going to discuss about multithreading. Multithreading in C# is a process in which multiple threads work simultaneously. It is a process to achieve multitasking. It saves time because multiple tasks are executed at a time. To create multithreaded applications in C#, we need to use system threading namespace. In multithreading, we have process and thread. Process represents an application, whereas thread represents the module of the application. Process is the heavyweight component, whereas thread is lightweight component. Thread is a lightweight subprocess. Collection of thread is a program. Whenever we create a process, separate memory area is occupied, but thread share a common memory area. Thread is defined as the execution path of a program. Each thread defines a unique flow of control. One common example of use of thread is implementation of concurrent programming by modern operating systems. Use of threads saves wastage of CPU cycle and increases the efficiency of an application. Multithreaded program contains two or more parts that can run concurrently. Each part of a such program is called thread. Multithreading is a specialized form of multitasking. Multithreaded programming relies on combination of features defined by C# language. Each program is divided into parts. That part is nothing but a thread. dotnet framework defines two types of threads. They are foreground and background. The thread class is sealed, which means it cannot be inherited. The class is available in a system threading namespace. The thread class has some methods. Let's focus on them. Let's discuss each method one by one. First one is thread abort. This abort method is used to terminate the thread. Join. This is overloaded method. Block the calling thread until a thread terminates. Resume. This method resumes a thread that has been suspended. Sleep. This static and overloaded method block the current thread for the specific number of milliseconds. Then, start method. This start method causes the operating system to change the state of the current instance to thread state not running. Then, suspend method. This method will either suspend the thread, or if the thread is already suspended, has no effect. Is alive. Gets a value that indicates the execution status of the current thread. Then we have name. It sets or gets the name of the thread. Then priority. Set or get a value that indicates the scheduling priority of a thread. Then thread state. It gets a value that contains the state of the current thread. Now let's see one example on multithreading. First, we have to use our namespace using system.threading. Now I am going to create a class and I will name it as sample class. Inside the sample class, we have string tname and then thread, which is simple t. Let's write public sample class, parameters will be string name, then tname equal name, t equal new thread, this dot run. Then we have t dot start method, which is to start the thread. Then public void run. When we start the thread, this run method will be called. Console.writeLine, thread name, and it will show starting message. Now I am going to add one for loop. Int c equals 0, c less than 10, then C++. Thread will be sleep for 500 milliseconds. Then it will print console write line. In plus tname plus count is C. Then console write line, thread name, terminating. First thread sleep for 500 milliseconds. It will print the count and then it will be terminating and finish printing. Now let's go inside the main function. Here I want to print main thread starting. Console write line, main thread starting. I will create objects for our sample class. Sample class object sc equal new sample class and parameters will be child1. We have a for loop int c equals 0, c less than 10, C++. Console write line. We have dot and then I will sleep thread for 100 milliseconds. Thereafter we have main thread ending. Let's run this one and see the output. Here you saw that we are getting that delay of half second. Here you will see we have child count 0, child count 1, and thereafter the main thread ending. After that we have 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Then thereafter we see child 1 is terminating. Let's move to the code. Here we created one constructor and we assign the name. Then it will run the thread. So this part will be called first. It will be sleep for 500 milliseconds and then it will be printed the count. You will get only 0 and 1. Now from here we will see main thread is starting. This sample class child 1 is passed to the constructor and the name will be received, and also it will be received by here also. Now the T name will be child 1 and from this dot run it will come in here. Here the thread will be started and here is the place we get this child 1 count is 0 and child 1 count is 1. Then here we get main thread ending because we say that the thread sleep for 500 milliseconds. After main thread ending, child count 2 we get. From there we print only 0, 1 and it will come here, and for every 100 millisecond it will print all the other values one by one. I will change this 500 milliseconds into 2000 milliseconds and 100 milliseconds into 1000 milliseconds. Let's run and see the output. Here you will see it will coming after every 2 seconds. Based on the time, the number of values are printing. Now let's see one another example. For this, I will create a class. Class name will be thread creation program. Then here we have public static void call to child thread. Console write line. Child thread starts here. Then I will pause the thread for 500 milliseconds. In we need to sleep for equal 5000 milliseconds. Here we have console write line. We need to print child thread is paused for milliseconds. Amount will be 5000. Here we have thread dot. With the use of sleep method, I will call sleep 4. After this 5000 milliseconds, child should be resumed. Console.writeLine print child thread resume. Inside our class thread creation program, I will have my main function static void main string args. We have thread start class. I will create one object for that. Object name will be child ref equal new thread start. Here we will call to child thread. We have one console write line. In order to print in main creating the child thread. Then I will create objects for thread class. Object name will be child thread. New thread. Here we will call child ref. Then we have child thread dot start. Here is the place where child thread starts. First it will print creating the child thread. After that it go here call to child thread. Then it will run this part. Here first it will start the thread. Thereafter the child thread will pause for 5000 milliseconds. Then child thread will resume. Let's run this one and see the output. Here you will see the thread paused for 5000 milliseconds. Then it again started resuming. Now let's see one more example. Here I am going to show you how abort method is working in multithreading. For this one, we have to create a class called thread creation program. Under that we have public static void call to child thread. Let's create one try catch block. Here we want to print child thread starts. Here we have one for loop. We have int counter equals 0, then counter less than or equal 10, counter plus plus. Here we have thread sleep method. It will sleep for 500 milliseconds. Then we have console write line. Here we call counter. After for loop, we have control write line, child thread completed. Now let's have one catch block. Here we have thread abort exception. Inside catch block, we want to print the thread abort exception. Also we can add finally block as well. There we want to print could not catch the thread exception. Similar to the previous one, for the thread start class, we need to create one object, child reference equal new thread start. Here we call to child thread. Console.writeLine. In main, we create this child thread. Then for the thread class, we create child thread object equal new thread. Here we call child reference. Then we have to start the child thread. We want to sleep our main thread for 2000 milliseconds. Then we want to abort our child thread also. In main, aborting the child thread. Child thread dot abort method will be called. Let's run and see the output. Now let's focus on thread life cycle. In C#, each thread has a life cycle. When a task execution of a thread is completed, its life cycle is ended. There are stages of thread life cycle. Let's see what are the stages of thread life cycle. They are unstarted, runnable, running, not runnable, and dead. When an instance of thread class is created, it is unstarted state by default. Then, let's see what is runnable. It is ready to run. When start method is called, it is in runnable state. Running. Only one thread within a process can be executed at a time. At the time of execution, thread is in its running state. Let's see what is this not runnable. When the thread is in not runnable state, if it is in sleep or wait method, it is called thread is not runnable. Dead. Dead means when the thread is terminated. This is how multithreading works. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.